What I want to do for everybody in this video is go over the concept of I. I isn't just any variable you use in an algebra equation like x or y. I represents something called an imaginary number. Imaginary numbers are like a different class of numbers outside the realm of real numbers. I, for example, is the square root of -1. At first you think, hey, but my teacher told me that you can't square root any negative numbers. That's in the realm of real numbers. When we're talking about imaginary numbers, yes, you can do that. And I is equal to the square root of -1. The concept of imaginary numbers is a vast topic, but in this video, I'll be covering one thing in particular, the powers of I. For anybody who doesn't know, powers basically means exponents. So like 2 squared would basically mean a 2 times 2. 2 times uh, how many ever times this number says. So let's take I. I squared. So if I is the square root of -1, then I squared should be -1. Like if 2 is the square root of 4, then 2 squared is 4. So now let's go to I to the power of 3. I to the power of 3 is just I squared times I, and that is true for any number. So that's -1 times I, and that gives us -I. Now let's try I to the fourth. I to the fourth is I to the third times I. That's -I times I. And now let's take -I for a second, and let's split it up into -1 times I. And then remember, we're still multiplying the entire thing by I. And as given up here, I times I is -1, and -1 times -1 is 1. Now let's go to I to the fifth. And I to the fifth is just 1 times I, which is I. And you might start to recognize a pattern. It always goes from I, I, -1, sorry, -I and 1. I, -1, -I and 1. And just to prove this, I'll do I to the sixth for you guys. I to the sixth is I to the fifth times I. And I, which is basically I times I, which is -1, as we described here. And knowing that this pattern exists, we can take I to some crazy powers and we could still figure out the answer. Like, for example, we could do I to maybe the 29th power. And when I'm given a problem like this, what I do is I take this exponent and I divide it by 4. And you'd say, okay, you divide it by 4, that'd just be 7, and then you get a remainder of 1. And we don't really care about the 7 part. All we care about is this remainder. What we do is, since 1 is the remainder, we go to the first number, which would be I. So I to the 29th would be I. If there's no remainder, then you just go to the I to the fourth, which would be 1. Let's take another really crazy number, like I to the, I don't know, 74th. And you might think like, damn, this is a really big number. So what you gotta do is, first we gotta divide the 74 by 4. 74 divided by 4 is 18. 18, and then you have a remainder of 2. So 18 and you have remainder of 2. And then you don't really care about the 18, and then all you do is put this remainder of 2, and it's I and -1. So I to the 74th is -1. And now with this, you could literally take any power of I, and you could basically figure out whether it is I itself, -1, -I, or 1.